Miss Andrews, are you okay?
Definitely not. I'm actress Valerie Allen, and I play Amy Andrews in the new film, The Empty Space.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
A violent attack leaves her without her boyfriend, her home, her sense of self. Amy, like so many of us, suffers from mental illness. As she tries to get her life back together, she's haunted by terrifying visions that may or may not be real. Empty Space goes beyond the slasher and takes you deep into the void. We hope you join us as our film premieres on streaming. We also hope that not only are you frightened, but you gain some insight into a serious problem that affects so many people, including the filmmakers.
I know how it sounds. What if it's real?
The Empty Space, a terrifying new vision from director Andrew Hara.
What's up, guys? Happy Turkey Day, maybe. Who knows when this is going to be released? Also, we have a deep dive coming. We have the second half of the Paul Verhoeven thing. I don't remember when the last one was, but it's been quite a while. But check it out. It's about RoboCop. Who doesn't love RoboCops? But yeah, welcome back to the Bomb Squad. Thank you, guys. Last episode was pretty heavy.
Truly.
And you guys are really embracing it, so we really appreciate that. But also, we decided to go 100% in the opposite direction today, kind of. And so this is an Andrew pick. I picked the 2000 movie Bait, starring Jamie Foxx, David Morose, Kimberly Ice, Mike Epps.
Did you call him Morose?
David Morse, for sure.
Mike Epps is in this movie.
That's true, my relative.
So
Mike
good.
Epps,
I know.
Mike Epps is also
Plural.
in. There is a Mike Epps in The Empty Space. Is it the same one? You'll have to watch to find out. Jeremy Donovan playing a not Mexican. And yeah, so this movie was directed by Antoine Fuqua. And Josh is going to tell us all about... No, I think William. It's William's turn. William, describe the plot.
Okay, so Jamie Foxx plays a criminal who gets arrested for stealing crawfish and prawns, and he's in jail. But on the side, there's this criminal this one main criminal guy who stole all this gold from the U.S. Treasury Department. And so, for some reason, David Morse, not Morose, decides to take Jamie Foxx, implant him with like this
a
microphone, a tracker, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're going to use Jamie Foxx as bait to lure out this other criminal guy who wears glasses. And so the whole movie, you're just going to watch. Yeah, exactly. And he's a little feminine. So he's like a little, 2000s gay coded sort of deal, classic old action stuff. And mostly you just watch Jamie Foxx trying to get his life back together, but the government's just trying to fuck around with him. And that's how we go. It's also written by Tony Gilroy. So, you got a lot of twists and turns coming on. And all around, it was very watchable.
Yeah. So, well, and I picked this movie, so I will say that I was a mastermind behind picking it. So
You really were.
Yeah, this movie rocks. So guys, the kids who listen to our podcast, this is what they used to call a mid-budget film. They used to be all over the place, and they were amazing. And now they're gone.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's hear what the biggest hater of the podcast has to say. Because I know with his little eye rolls.
You already spoke. You're the biggest hater.
I know. I was like, which one is it? I'm confused.
It's all right.
Here's the thing. Like, there's a part at the beginning. Like, one of my favorite things about this movie is that, like, it starts off and Jamie Foxx is trying to steal these prawns, and his whole reasoning is that prawns are bigger than shrimp, so they have to be more expensive. There's like even Mike Epps, who plays his brother, is asking him like, "Well, why don't we steal like jewels or something?" And he's like, "Because we're gonna have prawns. Like we have prawns."
He's a practical man.
There's a point where he's like, "We're gonna have a party, and all the stars are gonna come." And then he's like doing Bill Cosby, and he does like a couple. And he's like, only controversial stars are going because like those are the only voices he can do. And so like that's kind of the movie. Like one of the things I like about this movie because it's very like mid-budget thriller, like
Hmm.
William said, like there's a lot of plot. But the thing that I really like about this movie is Jamie Foxx, what he brings to this character. Because like this could have easily, I mean, this is just Enemy of the State with Will Smith.
Yes,
I was
yeah,
gonna say
yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah,
it is very much that, but just like wacky almost. It's
yeah. It's
like
like the
oh
funny version.
But
yeah.
the thing that works is that Jamie Foxx is playing a wacky character. The
Hmm.
movie itself is not wacky. And like one of the best points is like, so they're trying to steal the prawns, and Jamie Foxx is like, "Oh, I've been casing this joint for 6 months," and then it immediately cuts to Jamie Foxx and Mike Epps running from a dog, and Mike Epps is like, you've been covering this for 6 months, and you didn't know there was a guard dog," and Jamie Foxx is like, "It's a new dog."
Like
And
he's
then
so bad at it.
And
yeah,
that's
Yeah.
he's such
scene
a
one.
bad
Yeah.
criminal. And
Or
then
like
it cuts immediately to the robber and like he has a partner and they're stealing all these gold bars and the partner is like or well and then the main bad guy is named Bristol.
Hmm.
He has these cops tied up and he shoots them in the back of the head and his partner like takes off and he's like we promised no killing, like we're leaving, and he locks them in and this guy's like yelling, he's like chasing him down, he's like shooting at him, and then like he almost gets hit by a semi, and also in a very cool, this is a 2000s movie, the semi almost hits him, but he's smart because he has glasses, so it
Yeah.
barely misses him, and it's like,
Right.
yeah,
He calculated it.
he made that
he's
calculation in his
Yeah.
head.
He's good at geometry.
he is movie autistic where he
Yeah.
literally can understand everything happening at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And then
Basically.
like the driver gets out and he's like, "Hey man, are you okay?" And then this dude just shoots him like very coldly. And I
Yeah.
think that's why the movie works, because the movie it kind of like the reason Ghostbusters works, like the threat is real. It
Right.
just happens like, and it's like that thing where both Enemy of the State and this movie, the main character had nothing to do with what's going on. He just happened to get caught up in it. And
Right.
so it makes it enjoyable because the person that happened to be get caught up in this one was like a silly goofball who
I
can't take
know.
anything seriously. Like
And it's
there's
like,
a part. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I would like, oh no, oh, I'm kind of a veer off. Like, I just love that kind of movie, like where someone gets
Mhm.
caught up in like, I call it a jackpot. That's what they say in No Country for Old Men. Whenever that
Oh
taxi
yeah,
driver is taking Llewellyn to the hotel, he's like, I don't want to be in a jackpot. But it's like, jackpot movies are the fucking best. Like when a
yeah,
guy has no point and no reason to be somewhere, but like the government is just so fucking crazy and they're just trying to go home and like have some McDonald's, but they just fucking
yeah,
can't. Like that's the best. That's so fucking 90s too. Early
yeah.
2000s, mid 2000s.
Yeah, it's very like well. We should say too. This is the plan. It's the U.S. Treasury. It's like the feds, but it's basically Treasury. Their plan is so insane.
I
Like,
know.
this is gonna
It would never
like
be like okayed by any higher ups ever.
they literally first of all, why did they have the prawn thief in the same cell as the 40 million gold thief?
Oh,
That was
that's why they picked Jamie Foxx. I forgot why they picked him as the guy.
the jail cell with the
That
partner.
makes sense.
And it was county. Everyone just put together in
Oh
county.
yeah, they just kind of
Right,
no,
right.
and I believe that, but then like the head treasury agent David Morose, as we all know him as, he lies to Congress that Jamie Foxx volunteered for the surgery, pays someone to punch him in the jaw in the exact place they would
With a
need. So
brick.
like with a brick where he would need jaw surgery.
Yeah.
Let him out. Hope word gets around that this other thief will hear that he's there, and that will draw
Yeah.
him out.
Well, okay, but there's a part missing. So he gets put in with the partner, and the partner ends up dying because David won't like give him medical attention, even though he needs it. And then, but he told Jamie Foxx some stuff, so they're like, Jamie Foxx might know, or at least everyone thinks he does. And then, like, one of my favorite parts is there's a part where the FBI agent or the federal agent like gets Jamie Foxx, and he's like, "I got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first?" And Jamie Foxx goes, "I want to hear the good news." And he goes, "The good news is you're fucked. Want to hear the bad news?" And then Jamie Foxx goes, "I think you just told me the bad news. Maybe you could tell me some worse news." It's so funny that he never. And I like again. it's just so funny that like everyone is fed up with this guy because he's so fucking annoying. But and even he kind of knows it, and I think that's what makes
Yeah.
it good. Like, so he gets out, and the first thing he does is he goes and sees his girlfriend or the girlfriend he had at the time, and then he finds out that he has a kid. And he's still like being joking, like he's kind of like telling, like when the kid starts crying, he's like, "What the hell is that? Did you get a dog?" You
Yeah.
know. But then because the girl's obviously like he just went to jail for 2 years, like he's not like she's not 100% sure, and so there's a scene where there's like a part where he kind of turns it off and he's like, "Can I hold my son? Like let me hold
Yeah.
him." And he holds him and he kind of starts joking around, but it's like it's a very sincere thing.
He's a
And
very
it's
genuine guy for sure.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's why it works with Jamie Foxx, because Jamie Foxx is a good enough actor where that like I want to compare him to Deadpool, where Deadpool doesn't have a character; his character is just quips.
Yeah.
But Jamie Foxx in this movie, his character is a goofy guy, but he also is still a guy. Like he has a lot of emotions. It's
Right.
just his like reliance is to be goofy.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
has
it's
like
his
an
defense,
interiority to him still.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
could see yourself meeting that person. You can't see yourself
Totally.
meeting Deadpool. It's not like a real
Yeah. Yeah.
person.
So
yeah.
instead of this movie be turning into a comedy, like Spy is a good version of this. It's way just 100% comedy. But what works with this is like instead of it being a full comedy, it ends up being a thriller about what would happen when you get a silly guy in such a serious situation. And I
Right.
think that's what makes the movie work to me.
I think so. And like even like at the very beginning when he's like when he's with the guy who stole the gold in the jail cell, like he's also doing the same thing, like making quips, making jokes, but the guy like needs medical attention, like needs pills. And Jamie Foxx is like genuinely being like, we have to save this guy's life. Like I'm afraid for this guy that I just
Right.
barely met. And so you're like, oh, okay, Jamie Foxx is cool. He's just kind of a fuck up. But he's definitely someone who like I feel like I went to high school with Jamie Foxx's character.
Yeah.
Like he was just like he's just such a I feel like he's playing the like that song "Slow Jams" by Kanye West, and Jamie Foxx
With
he does the
Jamie Foxx.
intro. Yeah, like whenever Jamie Foxx does that intro, I feel like it's his character from Bait doing that intro, where he's just like, "We listen to all this stuff. Like, what do the ladies want to listen to? Like, let's give them what they want to hear." And it's like that's just Jamie character. That's just his fucking vibe in this
I
movie.
I
feel
It's
like
so
him.
pure.
When he tries to get his life together, and he doesn't even consider he's going for like to drop off job applications, but it's places that he's robbed. He doesn't
Yeah,
even think that might be an issue, like in his life.
finding a job is getting dangerous these days. I believe that's what he says.
And see, again, that's why it's funny because in that scene, and that's a perfect scene because he goes in there and he's like, "Hey, man, I had some problems. I did go to jail, but here's my resume. I'm willing to do whatever." And he kind of makes a joke.
Yeah.
He's like, "I can be the top guy, or I can start from the bottom." And then the guy's staring at him, and he goes, "Didn't you fucking rob me 2 years ago?" And he's like, "No, man." And then he realizes that he's trying to leave,
Yeah,
and like they don't want him to leave, and then like they think he has a gun, and it's a very real situation because everyone's reacting to it in a real way, but he still can't like stop like trying to like point out the ridiculousness of it, but also like he is also trying to get out of there, and then it ties back into it because then the cops are like, "Okay, well he can't get he's such a fuck up. We need to help him out."
right. Oh,
And so they give him some money so that like he stops trying to go get jobs and he can like be bait and they can find him. And then he immediately like gives it to his girlfriend because he wants it for the baby. And then they're like, "What the fuck?" Like they have to give him more money.
Right.
But it's like he's such a sincere guy and he's like wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
It makes it really like it makes it him endearing, even though like like for every joke that doesn't work, you kind of like, yeah, but he's like he's trying his best and like you kind of want him to succeed,
Totally. And also like Tony Gilroy is just like so good at like making those scenes of like government people in an office, like a weird bunker, always on high alert.
It's such a like. Well, okay, we should say too. Their command center is at the top of the World Trade Center, and this was
is it really
in the year 2000? Yeah, I don't know if you saw the
I didn't
zoom in
even
on the
notice
twin
that.
towers. You're like, oh
yeah.
But it's like, it's David Morose is commanding this field office, and one of them is Jamie Kennedy.
Also
played the exact same role in any of the state of like hacker guy who's just like What's he doing? He's bypassing the firewalls.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Just flipping
But then-
switches. So many switches being flipped.
And it makes so much because like the bad guy calls Jamie Foxx and he's using like a bunch of tracers, so it's going everywhere and they can't find him. And they know it's him, but they can't do anything about it. And then like Edgar, who's the FBI agent, he goes, "Guess what, guys? He just stuck his head out and fucked us in the ass." You know, like, it's such a fucking Tony Gilroy dialogue.
They have the kind of the hot blonde agent, and then there's a scene
Oh
where
yeah.
Jamie Foxx is reconciled with his wife and they're having sex, and
Yeah.
she's
They
like
can see
getting
everything that
into
you
it
see.
while they're like listening to it. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, it's such an early 2000s like Bruckheimer style movie.
I know.
you know?
And like they're all like watching him like try to get his shit together, and like everyone's like, maybe he's gonna do good. Maybe he's gonna like really become a better guy. And David Morris is just like, they all just have a sob story. I'm going to sleep. But it's like they're like totally the audience. Like that was like so funny. Like
I know.
they're
There's
just like
also
laughing at
this,
his jokes too. Yeah.
These two recurring henchmen. It's Jeffrey Donovan from Burn Notice and another guy. I don't know the other guys.
Jeffrey Donovan playing famous Puerto Rican Julio. You know Jeffrey Donovan, the Puerto Rican? Yeah, Raimundo it's Kurt Afasado, who is Puerto Rican, so you get a pass, even though it's a very white Puerto Rican. We'll take it.
But they're like two brothers who a drug deal goes wrong with Mike Epps, and they're kind of chasing him, and nothing really comes of it. But it is interesting because we have already reviewed the other huge Jeffrey Donovan bomb of the year 2000 on this podcast, Blair Witch 2, The Book of Shadows. So
Two bangers.
eventually we'll cover
Jeffrey,
every
you-
Jeffrey Donovan film.
Jeffrey, you did good. You had two bangers in 2000. You're like Keanu
on, bro.
Reeves.
This is glory days.
Yeah, and I think like again, it just feels super lived in. Like the world doesn't like, and it's so easy. I think that's why I like this movie. Wanted to cover it. It's so easy for this movie to like go slapstick, but it never does. It always keeps it grounded in reality. And
Yeah.
I think that makes the movie work. Like there's a scene later where he's like kind of talking to his wife or his girlfriend, and he's like explaining like when he was a kid, you know, he had a happy childhood. And his wife's like, I didn't know that. And he's like, and he tells a story about how his dad like used to work at the racetracks, and then like he was sad because he was poor. So one day he like got all these toys and he surprised them, and they like loved it. It was like their favorite Christmas. And then like the cops came because he stole them and they took him away. And he was like, so I that's the only thing I remember is just this, you know, moment of happiness that we had. And that's kind of like, it's a funny story when like the whole time Jamie Foxx is like making voices and kind of doing this to like that kind of stuff brings him back to the real world. It's like, no, this guy has lived this life. It's just he chooses not to be stuck in the world that he lives in. He chooses to kind of look at it from a positive outlook, and I think that kind of that builds the movie, and I think it makes it really well done. You know.
Yeah, he's a very strong central character, which is good. I actually do think too. The guy, what is it, Doug Hutchison? He played Toombs on the X-Files, so all my notes just say Toombs for everything. Is like a good, like weird serial killer, you know, like he does a good like job. He's only really in it in the very beginning and very end. He's kind of like not too much in the middle, but I think he like really pulls it off when he's around. So,
yeah, no, I think he does a great
creepy.
job, and I think like he makes it creepy, but also he's like he has just enough character so you know he's a threat, but like the focus is Jamie Foxx,
right?
So,
But
like,
I like that he's
he
not
brings
like the
enough,
Joker.
yeah.
Like he's not like crazy. He's like, oh no, he has like a logic he's following. He's like, no, I'm not going to torture you. I'm going to do this because this will make you do this for me. You know, like that kind of thing. I was like, all right.
I think like one of the coolest things, and I always like when this happens is like near the end he has Jamie like tied up and he's trying to get the information out of him, and so he just boils a pot of coffee and he has Jamie Foxx like in his underwear, and then he's just like pouring the coffee on Jamie Foxx, and I was like, oh my god, that would hurt so fucking bad. You know?
He would literally have to go to the hospital after that. Like that was insane.
I was like, like every time. That's the thing I remember most about this movie, because it's like I always like when they introduce some form of torture that like is just a household appliance, you know, like oh yeah, I just did this, you know, and I think that makes it cool. Yeah.
Very down to
The
earth.
only scene that well, and it comes back, so it kind of works. But there's just when he before he meets Mike Epps, he's like walking down the street and he's like contemplating, but then they put like dialogue of like previously of what stuff we'd seen, like him finding out he has
Oh
a
yeah,
son. And it's
that was
like
weird.
it's such a weird like why are you recapping the
I
first
That's
half
know.
of
that
this
is
movie?
such honestly,
I thought he was drugged.
I've seen 90-minute movies where they do the recap and it's just like that's got to be studio notes. So then like no, the
Yeah.
audience needs to like remember. I do
Yeah,
think this movie that my big criticism is that it probably could have been closer to 90 minutes than 2 hours because there's a lot of
yeah,
times where like okay, near the end the guy's tied him up, he has the family, and then what he does is he's like, all right, I'm gonna leave your wife and child in this car with a bomb, and we're gonna go find the gold, so and it does the thing where he's running to get back to his family, but it starts him like trying to get back to his family at like 9 minutes. And it's like, like you could have
Yeah.
cut it closer instead of me seeing the full 9 minutes of him like
right.
dealing,
It's
or
in
like
real time.
at the beginning when the truck is skidding along the road and it almost like hits the guy. It's like it didn't need to skid for 2 minutes
Yeah, that
straight.
Right,
You really
Austin
could have
Powers style.
like, yeah, maybe they get the Austin Powers countdown from like 10
Yeah,
minutes.
it
Yeah,
was like it was especially like okay guys we got it like because that
yeah,
first scene it's like I said it's a good mix between the silliness and the seriousness but then he's like chasing him down he's like shooting at him and there's like the semis like skidding it's like okay guys we don't
yeah,
need all of this you know
it feels very much like, I mean, we have the footage. Let's just put it in
yeah
there. And it's just like, which
yeah,
is because the editing is very like, it is like enemy get it. It's like very frenetic, like kind of very like
yeah.
fast paced and quick. And it's like, yeah,
Very
keep
techno
that
thrillery.
momentum by like jumping to like the next thing. You don't need to like linger on this so much.
Right.
yeah
Like it's a strange. It's almost weird where they do it and then they don't do it. I don't know. You'd have to
Yeah.
see it to find out. So
Yeah,
yeah
this I love like just talking about the editing and stuff. Like Antoine Fuqua is like I think he's like from like music videos and stuff, so he's like just a very flashy guy. And like this movie and the Replacement Killers both have like just like that cool sort of like tech like there's like that moment in the millennium like in 98 to like 2000 before the
yeah
9/11 where like just like that cool tech vibe was just like everywhere. Like everything was
Mhm.
like beginning to be computerized and so like everything just like felt digital even if it didn't have to, but that's like fucking crack. Like I love that
yeah,
vibe
like the
so
grunginess
much.
kind of,
Yeah, yeah, like
yeah.
with like
and you
little
know what
matrix dashed in there, like
and
so good.
it's kind of funny. I feel like the Matrix kind of started this, where it's like, or at
Yeah,
least like it was the big one, where it's like, even though the Matrix clearly takes place in Australia, they
yeah.
kind of like it's real poppy, and like it almost feels like they're trying to make it seem a little bit Asian centric, like in like
Yeah,
how
sure.
industrial it is. And I feel like this one a little bit, but especially the Replacement Killers. I don't
Yeah,
even know where the Replacement Killers takes place, but it wherever it is, it's in the only takes place in the Chinatown of that area.
right. As much neon as we can get, like just
Yeah.
blast it out, just blast it out.
It's like that kind of nighttime green filter. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
very
very similar.
Fincher. Yeah,
But I thought the Matrix took place in the Matrix.
And
yeah,
don't worry, guys. We will cover Replacement Killers eventually.
Oh, I thought
yeah.
you said we were going to cover the Matrix. I'm like the biggest movie of
Biggest
all
fucking
time.
bomb. Yeah, no one saw that piece of shit.
We did cover the
The
Oh,
newest
we
Matrix.
did
one.
the fourth one just because it was on
Yeah.
HBO Max that week.
Oh, I rewatched that movie and it fucking I like was not paying attention that well the first time I saw it, but I like really liked it the second time I watched it.
Really?
Totally off topic, but I was a
I
big
could
fan.
almost see going into it knowing there's not going to be any action scenes. Like you
Yeah,
almost like you have
yeah,
like a different mentality.
right.
It's a curious rewatch. I could.
It's kind
Yeah,
of like this is completely off topic. For the Matrix, it feels to me like Guardians, where I didn't really like the last Guardians that much, but then as I was thinking about it and thinking of the themes and the fact that James Gunn just made it about his time at Disney and how much he kind of was like ready to leave, it makes it more interesting. I don't know if I would like it more because it's still like 5 hours of a Marvel movie, but
yeah,
it did make him. And I feel like the same thing a little bit with Matrix, where it's like, oh, this is a movie about how she didn't want to make the Matrix, and she's
right.
kind of
Yeah,
forced to be stuck in
she
this
was like
cycle.
saying "fuck off, studio."
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
take this. No,
I don't know if that
that's
saves the
interesting.
movie,
Right, it's
Right.
good.
does
It's a very
make it
unique
more
perspective.
interesting.
I don't know. I,
Yeah.
I do think if there's like a strong message like that, even if the movie's not great, that really elevates it. So that kind of makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's almost like a
Yeah.
documentation of like their thought process.
Can we
more
talk
than, like, an
about
actual story?
the gold? I know we've talked about how insane the federal agent's plan in this movie is. Can we talk about how insane the gold hiding place is in this movie?
How did they get it there?
How
I know.
he hid it? Okay, so
And no one
the,
noticed.
the whole mystery, spoilers for the end of this movie, go watch it on Tubi. It's free. It's
Yeah.
it's great. But spoilers for the end of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, all Jamie Foxx knows is that the guy mentioned the Bronx Zoo, and
Mhm.
that he
No,
kept
it's
saying
Bronx
there's no
Zoo,
place.
no place like home.
Bronx Zoo,
Right,
there's no
right.
place like home. And then so the agents like search the whole zoo, they can't find it. And then at the very end, Jamie Foxx, things have been resolved. He's with his wife, girlfriend. And then some guy's like, "Hey, do you have a book on the Bronx Zoo?" She's like, "Maybe under animals." He's like, "Oh no, that's like a nickname for Yankee Stadium."
That's also funny that she thought that he wanted a book like he's like a 40-year-old man. And she thought he
Yeah.
wanted like a
He's
baby
got like a
book.
child's picture book, yeah.
And also,
He's
her directions are just so vague. Check sports.
and he's like, "Oh no, the Bronx Zoo's a nickname for Yankee Stadium." And then Jamie Foxx is like, "Oh shit!" And then it shows them excavating home plate at Yankee Stadium where the gold was hidden. And it's like, how did this random thief in a stolen van hide the gold under
Well,
home plate at Yankee Stadium?
they say at
Right.
one point that he was really good with construction. I think that's their justification. How he managed to do all that
to break
in, like,
into Yankee
In like a
Stadium.
few hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and not only
Yeah.
that, but then David Morse is like, "Hey," because he calls him. He's like, "Hey, I know where the gold is. How much do I get?" And he's like, "You get 5%." And he's like, "Oh, I don't want that." He's like, "That's $2 million." He's like, "Oh, I'll take it." But the whole time I was like, "David Morse, can you give $2 million?"
Right.
Like,
Was this
Yeah.
national treasure? They
Yeah,
did the same
of,
shit in
of
that
like
movie.
literal stolen like U.S.
like,
Treasury
off the
gold.
top
Yeah.
of your head, like, yeah, you could just have. I will say, and I'm glad we're talking about this because one of the things that I really liked about this movie, especially in comparison to like some of the other ones, is that the whole Jamie Foxx doesn't figure it out until they've stopped the villain. Like the whole thing about the home
Right.
stadium and everything. That's after the movie's done for the most part. And I really like that because I hate when I don't mind it so much when they figure it out but like in this one, he had to figure out a way to stop the guy
Mhm.
without knowing what the guy wanted, but without letting the guy know that he didn't know what that he knew. And
Right.
so I think that makes it more interesting again because
Right.
it's like he has to figure out a way to try to keep everyone alive, but he has nothing. Like he never has anything of value for the people in this movie other than his loved ones. But he doesn't
Mhm.
have anything going for the cops. He can never figure anything out for the criminal. And I think
Yeah.
that again is very in line with his character, but also makes the movie more interesting because he has to figure out how to do it without knowing anything.
Right. There's no
Right.
incentive for him to
He's
do it
just
besides
spinning.
saving his wife and child at the end.
And I don't even, it is funny. I don't even think he figures out that he has a tracker in his mouth. Like he suspects it, but it doesn't fully come into
Well,
it until the very end.
He
Yeah.
figures out that he's being followed because
Yeah,
He
yeah.
sees all the people.
He gives the money away to his girlfriend, and then their plan to give him more money is some guy just runs up to him and is like, "Hey, buddy, hold this," and it's full of money.
Yeah.
And that's when he's like, "Okay, this is a little too fucking weird.
Yeah.
I keep getting money."
Right.
so
Like twice
then-
in 1 week, yeah.
And then at one point he gets chased and he starts seeing people that he's seen before, like the fucking mailman is actually a federal agent.
Mhm.
And so that's when he kind of puts two and two together. But yeah, he doesn't actually figure out that they've cut into his jaw and inserted anything. And I don't even know if they take it out. That's just like he
They
gets
probably
that
don't.
bad now.
He's an entertaining guy.
Which,
When they're
which-
bored, they just watch him.
It's funny too. At one point, Jeffrey Donovan and his brother have abducted Jamie Foxx, and they're like, you messed us up. Give us our money, whatever. And they smack him around, and they hit him in the jaw, and it causes like such a bad feedback that all the federal agents are like, like
Yeah.
like their ears are going off. But it's like, wouldn't it have done that like every time he brushed his teeth? If it
Totally,
was
yeah.
like that tone. They're just like, stop, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, like, and it's so funny because he figures it out, but then he's still like Alvin, so he's like, trying to call them through his teeth.
Oh
He's like,
yeah,
he's like
Oh
calling
yeah,
them codes.
I'm going down Adams
yelling
Boulevard.
for help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes like it takes the people in the base like a minute to figure out what he's doing, but it's like he's
Yeah.
obviously telling you his location, and they're like,
He's not being
"Huh?"
subtle at all. Because even the guys, even the Puerto Rican guys, are like, "Who are you talking to?"
Just drive. They were fucking great. They were so funny.
I know,
And like,
and that's why
and they
like,
see him at the horse race. Like, there's like so much
Mhm.
synchronicity between them. Like,
Eh,
they randomly walk out
that's-
of a falafel shop, and he's like running down the street.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are everywhere.
And again, like that's the movie is surprisingly tight because he tells that story about his dad and working on the horse track, and you think it's just to kind of build sympathy for this character, but at the end, the place where he says the gold's buried at is the horse track,
Mhm.
and you automatically know from that story that he knows the horse track because he used to visit his dad there a lot. So you
Yeah.
know that he's like, you know that's not where the gold is.
Right,
Right.
but
You
he's
know that,
setting
he's trying
something
to
up.
figure something
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And so I think again, like the movie's so tight, and then like those guys just being at the horse track. I think earlier in the movie they're like, "We gotta go bet on the races." And so
Yeah,
then
yeah.
It also comes back around. It's just a
He's
very
the
tight
devil.
film.
Yeah. It's like also Tony Gilroy just fucking loves horses. There's always fucking horses in his
I know.
movies. But I remember like there's a part, spoiler alert, whenever he's like driving there's a bomb in a car and Jamie Foxx has to drive this bomb as far away from people that are already in this
Right.
crowded zone. And I was so in like modern filmmaking mode that I was just like, oh my god, everyone in this base is gonna die. But then I was like, no, he has to be at least 2 inches away from the van when it explodes to survive. Because this is the
leave out
2000s.
Seconds. I was
Yeah.
so sure he was gonna to grab the bomb and get on a horse and ride it away, but I was like, no, then the horse would
Yeah.
be in danger. They wouldn't do that.
Right.
Well, and also,
Jamie wouldn't
like,
do that.
Like this movie's pretty good and the action's really well done because it's all practical. But when he jumps off of that fucking van as it explodes, it's literally like just a dude, and he's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
just
I
like
mean,
a paper mache, like someone moved. Like, a
Yeah.
little piece of paper,
that's one of those. How else do you resolve this scene? Let's
Yeah.
just get it
Right.
done type
Well,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they had to like add a little bit more because the actual killer dude is not imposing at all. I think that what makes him work.
Yeah.
And B, like, yeah, there just needed to be one more stake to kind of throw up, and so
Yeah.
we needed a bomb there.
Yeah.
And then I do like that David Morse is playing like the Tommy Lee Jones character from The Fugitive. Which
Totally.
Also, good movie. Maybe we'll cover that one.
Yeah.
But The Fugitive was a huge hit. I don't
Not a bomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
U.S.
but
Marshals. We could do.
but that one's. But anyway,
haven't
so he's
seen it.
playing the Tommy Lee Jones character where he's like, no, he's just a hard cop and he wants the best. But it's like, he's so fucking evil for most of the movie. You're kind of like, at the end when they become friends, you're like, yeah, I mean, you're kind of still a dick. You know?
Yeah.
I know you did
gonna
fuck
chul
him
out.
over in so many ways
Like,
with your
you beat
insane
him.
plan.
You beat him up
Yeah.
like 3 times, you know? Like,
You didn't believe his sob story.
yeah.
You know you want to be best friends. Fuck you.
And then it
Oh,
has,
there was that one explosion though. Whenever that one guy is like tied up in like an embassy
Oh,
room.
the diversion where he abducts
Yeah.
one of them.
Oh,
That
Yeah.
explosion was fucking good.
That was
Everyone,
cool.
that was badass. That was one of the best
Yeah.
explosions I might have ever seen in a movie.
And
That
it was
felt real.
that. It was like the only other guy that's not Jamie Kennedy that you recognize. It's David Paymer.
Yeah,
Who, you
yeah.
know,
From
Get
Get
Shorty.
Shorty, yeah, that's what
He's
those
in
are.
Ocean's
I thought.
13.
Company. He's in like a million movies. He's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
They torture
Yeah.
him in Ocean's 13. He plays like the guy that they like fuck up his hotel room
Oh,
and like
yeah.
give him like food poisoning and like all this crazy shit. He's like from
He's-
like the James Beard of Hotel Awards. or
He's a
something.
very he looks so like defeated by life. He always kind
He's
of
a boss.
plays like losers.
Yeah.
He's the boss in Drag Me to Hell who tells her like, you gotta tell that old
Oh
lady.
yeah,
Yeah, he's the
Oh,
dick
that's such a good
boss.
movie.
Yeah.
yeah. At
But
the
yeah,
bank.
so you know him, and then so then they set up a bomb and it's a trap, and he's like trying to tell him no. And again, because the movie has set up that it's serious on that side, you realize that like they blow that guy up, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there are stakes in this. So
right.
yeah, it's a good movie.
good
It's an
exercising
entertaining
tone.
Yeah, it's
film,
interesting.
Yeah.
It's what's interesting if you're going to Tubi after this to look for it, you'll see 4 other movies also called Bates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
Look for the one with Jamie Foxx, not the 2 of them with sharks for some reason.
Right.
I've seen there's
we call
one
it
where
comedy
it's a
gold.
shark in an Australian supermarket. It's not bad.
Oh.
where like a flood floods a supermarket. They're
We'll take
hiding
your
on the
word for it.
shelves. It's got the guy from Nip Tuck, who's Australian in real life.
Good day, mate.
This is
That's how he
a
sounds
good
in the
premise for a
movie.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
It's
a
a
clip from
shock,
it.
mate.
But yeah, I think like, and
No.
it's also funny. I mean, we don't need to get into 9/11 on every podcast we do, games.
I
But
mean, it's
Right.
the
it
Twin
is kind of
Towers, and it was the
funny
year 2000.
that
Yeah,
like
everything was fine.
it's kind of funny how much like these movies were because like this was a pretty big theme back in 2000 1999 because again Enemy of the State comes out 2 years before in 1998 and it's just like this theme of like too much government surveillance and of course
Right.
the Matrix is literally that's all it's
That's
about
the entire thing, yeah.
and like we were really starting to criticize how much information we're giving the government and then one attack later we're literally handing them the keys to our fucking passwords
Right.
And
And then
shit
you
went
get
out
Body
the
of
window.
Lies.
and you would almost think that these movies would be in reaction to that but they're not like we don't see a reaction to that until like the Dark Knight where that's where like
Right.
the first instance of like well not the first but like one of the biggest ones
Yeah.
where someone was like, "Hey, maybe giving them all our information was bad."
Right.
And these
right.
movies are kind of saying the same thing. Like maybe constant surveillance is not a good thing, and we shouldn't want that at all.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the weird bringing it back to X-Files. How like the X-Files wouldn't have worked in the 2000s because the whole like government conspiracy, like people wouldn't believe, like it's just like it's like no, the government's like fighting a war, whereas like
Right.
no real wars in the 90s, people are like, okay, the government's clearly up to some shady business, and they've always
Yeah.
been,
Correct.
but it took like so long for people to kind of come back to that like style of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also
It's
the
crazy.
X-Files clearly does not work, as been proven by
Right,
X-Files
everything that's
multiple
come
occasions.
out since the
Yeah.
90s.
But yeah, no, and I think like again, it's kind of it's one of those movies where it does have themes of how much surveillance is too much surveillance. It has themes of
Mhm.
sometimes people just need second chances, or sometimes people aren't as bad as they think they are. But it's a pretty straightforward film. My mom loves this film. She loves
Oh, really?
how silly Alvin is.
I can see both of your parents liking that movie.
Yeah, they like it. And
It's
it's that
definitely
thing where
definitely watch it with the parents, so they'll
it's a
get
good
some
one for
chuckles.
the
Yeah.
parents. Other than that one sex scene, but it makes it funny.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think overall it's a really good film. It's smart. The character,
Mhm.
like I will say, if you do not find Jamie Foxx funny, you're in for a fucking
Right,
rough
right.
time. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's
The
all
movie
it is.
really
Yeah.
banks on you finding him charmingly
Yeah.
like
I
befuddled.
happen
That
to
is
find
extremely
him-
true. A lot of
Yeah,
pressure on his shoulders.
I know, but he.
But also,
he
no
doesn't-
one saw it.
I know. I mean,
We
and
didn't
I
talk
saw
about that. It
this-
was a major bomb.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
I
it
didn't see it
got
until just
terrible
now.
reviews. By
Right.
the way,
I
But
can
it was, like,
almost
totally
like
good.
to me I can almost see it because like I said, it's like, oh, if it had been closer to 90 minutes, it just needed to be a little tighter.
Mhm.
It's also like what 2 years after Enemy at the
Yeah.
state, so
Yeah.
they
Did
might
that
have
movie
just
do
been
good?
like, oh, you're just doing that.
and I don't
Right.
think this was one of Jamie Foxx's like early roles. Like he had done his show, but his show was pretty like it was on BT. It was pretty
Yeah.
on UPN before that, and so he hadn't really broken out into the mainstream, and like which is one of the reasons because I love Jamie Foxx from like his show and from Any Given Sunday. So
Yeah.
I was like, we went to go see it because of Jamie Foxx, but he wasn't at that level where like, and it's funny because the next movie he does after this is Ali, and that's where people were like, oh yeah, now we like this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like Any Given Sunday is also like pretty poorly received, and nobody really saw it, and it's
Yeah.
Oliver Stone. And
Great
so it
trailers,
wasn't-
though.
Yeah,
It's you know it is
Yeah,
funny because
and
this
great Willie Beeman song. Maybe we'll cover it just because I want to talk about that.
We'll see it on TV any given
um,
Sunday.
say this is like a huge bomb, but it's like, and it was, but it's also like, oh, it only made 15 million and the budget was 51, but now it's like, oh, this movie only lost 100 million, so it's not that, but it's like the
Yeah.
money amount shifted so much to these like stupid giant movies,
Right.
Which
Right.
is why we'll be covering the Marvels next year, it seems.
Oh yeah. I didn't even know
Yeah.
about that movie until everyone came out with like all this hate, and I was like, "Oh, that exists," and I guess it's bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I don't know.
too many superheroes. We're good, thanks.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, like, one of the things I also like about this movie, we're kind of wrapping up, but another thing I like about this movie is that, because we were talking a little bit about how Jamie Foxx hadn't broken out into the mainstream, but I do like that this movie, like, they could have Enemy of the State, Will Smith doesn't really act like he acts like anybody, But Jamie
Yeah.
Foxx does act like Jamie Foxx. Like he has a real character, and he's
Mhm.
and like he has that, he has that black distrust of the police, and like they really went out of their way to make it a black character in this movie
Right.
instead of
Will
like an
Smith is
every
like a rich
person.
government guy. Yeah.
And so I think that makes it more interesting because again, it just makes the world feel more full. Like when
Mhm.
there's just like a random, and it's so funny because you shouldn't even have to say this, but like just having like if you're just running into anyone, it could be a random minority. Like we exist.
Yeah.
So I think that adding that level, and I think that's probably largely in thanks to Antoine Fuqua, whatever his name is.
Not even close. Well, that's
Antoine
like, I
Moreau
mean,
Fuqua.
that is, I know, like
Yeah.
we're wrapping up. That is intentional, and I actually think that's like studios do want action movies, like a lot of times, like Neo, or like whatever his name is in Enemy of the State, to be kind of a blank slate,
Well,
not like
yeah.
too characteristic, which I think hurts a movie, but I think it
Yeah.
helps its box office.
Yeah,
And see,
that's true.
and I think that's like because when people talk about wanting more diversity, they don't mean they want the same boring generic superhero replaced with like whatever person they want to put there. They mean like if you're gonna make Bruce Wayne into a black guy or Bruce Wayne into or like Clark Kent into a Mexican, that's
Yeah.
gonna affect how he was raised. That's gonna affect a
Right.
lot of different things and
His
like
thought process, his culture, his
Mhm.
references.
Exactly. And so like I love that they did that for Bait, and I love and like when you're looking at a movie because this this movie could have starred anyone. Like you could have put a Mexican there, you could have put an Asian guy. Like the whole thing is about how you change the character. And so when people ask for more diverse stories, that's what they mean. Like take a story that could have been star anyone and put a very specific person there so that we
Yeah.
can relate to it on that level. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, like
Overall,
shape
I
it
hard
around
agree.
them. Don't just have them like react the same.
Mhm.
That
Yeah, and
no.
That's
it's
why
kind of
everything's been
like
so shitty for the last few years. 'Cause that's all everyone's been doing. It's just
right.
like, and everyone they're making a big deal about it, but it's like this all just feels so disingenuous.
Yeah, and I
Like
think
right now, it's not really diverse.
I think it works, and I think it's a good movie. I think you guys should check it out, especially because I mean, he did Equalizer, he did Shooter, he did Training Day, of course.
Training Day. Yeah.
So yeah, I
That
mean,
movie with
it's
Jake Gyllenhaal.
it's
That
one of
ambulance
his.
movie.
No, that was Michael Bay. No.
No, the one where he plays like a police dispatcher.
Oh yeah.
What is that called? And he's like bald.
I don't remember. The Guilty.
Yeah, that was pretty
No,
good.
never seen it.
Yeah, it was all right.
good. Yeah, wasn't too bad.
That's
Antoine
okay.
Fuqua is the thinking man's Michael Bay.
Antoine
Is
Fuqua.
my final thoughts.
Yes.
Fuqua.
Fuqua. Fuqua. But anyway,
He did
Bait,
Shooter.
check
Oh,
it
I'm
out.
thinking of. I was thinking of Shoot 'Em Up. I'm like, he did Shoot 'Em Up, really? But no,
No,
Shooter.
you were thinking of-
That
yeah.
makes more
I
sense.
think
Shoot 'em up
another
was so good.
movie.
I love Shoot 'em up.
I mean,
Yeah,
well,
we should cover Shoot 'Em Up.
that's an episode for another day because I think that movie
Absolutely.
did bomb too.
Oh, I know.
Oh, that movie bombed so
That movie was,
hard.
That
that
movie
was not
bombed
for
in a
anybody.
way you could tell when you're watching it. You're like, this is not going to make any
No one likes
money.
it. It's so good though. It's so fun.
Yeah. But thank you guys. Check out our deep dive. Check out this episode again. I like one of the things that I'm liking about our audience is that you guys are kind of sticking with us even when we're watching fun movies, watching more thinky movies. You're sticking around. Really appreciate it. And now I need you to go and use that sticking around to buy my shit so I get paid. Just kidding. You don't have to do that. But check out my stuff. Yeah. We'll see you guys next time on The Bomb